being 100K in debt to being a self-made millionaire. Rose Hahn, money expert, author, YouTuber, and educator.
And I actually never set out to become a millionaire. And eventually I landed on this real estate job. You don't ask, you don't get, but if you ask, it might just blow your mind. You can actually rewrite the new money identity that you have.
You say that 33% of Americans have no money saved for retirement.
It is legitimately hard to save money.
Let me challenge that. Is it hard to save money?
Just as much as you know how to save money, you also need to know how to spend it.
What do wealthy people know that others who struggle financially don't? Do you think anybody can be a millionaire? Tell the truth. Hello, welcome back to Getting Open with me, Andrea Miller. Oh my God, I'm so excited to bring you today's show. It is all about money, 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 and so much more, because guess what? There is so much more to money than just money. And honestly, we cover a lot of ground. We cover a lot of ground and just things that I've never even heard of, like your money identity. It's important. What is your money identity? You need to know. I need to know. Are you climbing the wrong ladder? Does it make sense for you to do a spending audit? And honestly, how an abundance mentality can quite literally change the game for you, not even just financially, but in every way, shape, or form in your life. So whether you are somebody that is on a journey to developing real wealth, capital W wealth, or you're somebody that's really struggling to make ends meet, you're trying to get out of debt, you're living paycheck to paycheck, it's hard out there for you, or anywhere in between, honestly, I promise you, this show is for you. It is so filled with so many actionable takeaways, and it really gets inside to how so many of us feel about money and finances and spending and saving and earning and all that stuff. I promise you, though, stick with us till the end, and you are going to feel so inspired and so ready to be abundant and feel that you, no matter where you are on the journey, that you are able to achieve financial freedom and financial wealth and everything in between. Okay, let me introduce my guest. Let's get into it. I am so excited to introduce Rose Hahn. Rose is an internationally renowned money expert, author, YouTuber, and educator dedicated to helping others achieve financial freedom. After transforming her own finances from $100K, that's $100,000 in debt to, get this, self-made millionaire status, she shares her journey and proven wealth building strategies. Through her books, courses, and videos, Rose has helped millions of people pay off debt, start investing, and build lasting wealth. Rose has been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Business Insider, CNBC, and today she makes her debut on Getting Open. Welcome, Rose.
Woo, thank you. What an intro. Thanks for having me, Andrea.
I am so excited. Oh my God, I have so many questions for you, but let's start with your truly compelling story. And I don't want to say anything else other than just give us that compelling background and we'll go from there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I am first generation Korean American, daughter of immigrants. And that really is where it all starts, because growing up, my parents always wanted me to work hard. They sacrificed a lot for us to succeed in this country. So working hard and wanting to be successful, that was in my blood. And at least in my family, the path to do that was getting a really good education, working hard, getting a good job. Like once you do that, I thought success. So that was the path I was on. Straight A student, got into NYU, pretty good school. And but behind all of that, there was always a streak of a little bit of rebelliousness. So before college, I told my parents, hey, I'm going to go on a gap year. I had this sort of just sense that I should get out there and see the world. And I'm so glad I did, because that gave me a taste of the kind of freedom that no one around me was living, but that I realized I really wanted. And granted, I was living off savings and bootstrapping, backpacking in hostels and doing it very cheaply. But it was my first experience of living life the way it really should be lived, is experiencing what you want, waking up and being able to spend your time how you want. So when I went back to college, I still wanted to be successful and all that, but I always had that taste of freedom in mind. And the question guiding all of my decisions ever since that moment was, how can I live a life of freedom like that?
Okay. And by the way, props to you because it takes guts for so many people, especially high achievers like you, so many young people to not go immediately to college, right? And I'm surrounded by young people who are either, in high school or in college or, somewhere in between, just out of college. And it's all, where are you going? Where are you going? Where are you going? And it just takes a lot of guts to say, I'm going to take a gap year or perish the thought, I'm actually not going to go to a typical 4-year university, which I want to come back to because the implications of um, a full college tuition or even a partial college tuition has major implications on your financial freedom, in some cases for your entire life. So I want to come back to that. But okay, so you gave yourself a taste of freedom. Props for that. How'd you get $100,000 in debt, Rose? Because you were making bank, girl. What happened?
Yeah. So you were mentioning wanting to come back to the whole idea of financial implications for college. I wasn't even thinking about that. I just thought, all right, I'm back from my gap year. Now it's time to hunker down, get to work, get a good job, and then I'll make a bunch of money. And then I guess I'll have that freedom, right? That's really how simple I thought. I was just doing what I was supposed to do. So I graduated college.
To do, right? That's
Yes,
we're all
that's
kind
the
of
key.
drinking that same Kool-Aid of get straight A's, be super ambitious, have that kick-ass resume. And by the way, I mean, NYU is an elite school. You're probably in the 5% of people that got in, right? So you got into one of the most elite schools on the planet, right? And I'm sure you got into a bunch of other places, but like you worked really hard to do that. And that you were inculcated like so many of us are inculcated, even the people that aren't aiming like for the highest of highs, most elite schools, right? So what you're supposed to do in terms of education.
Yeah.
Okay. So keep going.
Yeah, we're inculcated to climb the ladder and achieve, but the problem is when you're climbing the wrong ladder. So that's kind of where, my story leads to. So I graduated college, I was 22 and found myself in $100,000 of student loans. And also, even though I had this high paying job, thanks to my degree, all that money was going out the door.
So you weren't going and buying a bunch of Manolo Blahniks. You were,
actually, I was. Maybe not Manolo Blahnik, but I was going out and shopping and spending everything I made. Okay. And I wasn't making a dent in my debt because,
but you started in the hole. Like that's the important thing to realize. So you got an elite education, and then I think you went right into onto Wall Street, right? Right after you graduated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but you weren't saving.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not about what you make. It's also about what you keep and then what you do with what you make. And that's the part that no one had ever taught me. They just tell you, get a good job and get a good education at all costs. But it would have been great if someone had sat me down to do that ROI math on the student loans. And luckily, I studied finance, so it was a degree that I could actually monetize. So there was a path for me there, but yeah, after a couple of years of working on Wall Street and doing all the things, I was like, I don't have the freedom. I went on my first 2-week vacation as an adult, at my first real adult job. And because I hadn't saved for it, because I was, again, bad at budgeting and saving money, I didn't have any money for this vacation, but I really needed to go on vacation because I was working so hard. So I put it on my credit card and I'm sitting on this beach at the cheapest Cancun resort that I could find and ordering like soggy guacamole and sitting on the beach and thinking, this is so not freedom. Like my life is so not what I thought it would be. I did all the things and here's where I end up. And I didn't have any friends to go with because I was working all the time. So I didn't even have a life. And that's when I thought, whatever I'm doing is not working. And I felt really disillusioned because I worked so hard to get there. And there were a couple more financial wake-up call moments, but that was really the beginning of realizing, okay, what I'm doing is not working. I'm going to have to do something about my financial situation. So I'd say that was sort of the beginning of my financial awakening, as I like to call it.
Yeah. No, totally. And so you were at that point, 24, 25?
Yeah, around then.
Okay. And then, okay. How do you go from there, from being 100K in debt to being a self-made millionaire?
Yeah, so it was definitely a very zigzag journey. And I actually never set out to become a millionaire. Really, my journey,
Interesting.
really, my journey started with just wanting to get to zero. And so after this moment, I started actually seeking the kind of education that I needed to have, that I knew I needed to have, but never got, which is financial education. And I was hungry because, again, I had that image of freedom that I wanted that life. And I refused to believe that that was just my gap year and the best was behind me. And now this is real life for the rest of my life. I knew that there had to be a way to have that infused in my life, to just be my way of life. And not
That,
that I mean not working ever and just having
right.
a gap year every single year, but just having a sense of freedom in my daily life.
To me, when I think about what you're saying, this idea of um, financial freedom and emotional freedom, to me, those go hand in hand. And ultimately, you made that bold decision that a lot of people never have the guts to make, to live on your own terms. That is high vibe. That is high vibe, right? And even though you, like you said, you weren't necessarily visualizing a $1 million, being a millionaire, but it almost feels like you pulled the real ninja move of manifestation, which is you wanted the feeling, you wanted the lifestyle, you wanted the freedom, and the external trappings of having dollars in the bank were secondary, which is actually at the heart of successful manifestation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
mean, that's
actually,
how
I
I
think
think
you
of it.
really hit it. Yeah, I think you really hit it on the nail. It wasn't like I started on doing all these strategies. And of course, I did the tactics and we can talk about that. But it really started with this inner decision of this is not going to be my life. I know I am meant for more and no one else is going to make it happen for me but me. So that's where it started. And I think you need to hit that moment before you can face something as scary as your finances. A lot of people feel a sense of overwhelm when they think about their finances. So if you were in as much debt as I was, my approach up till then was avoidance. I just felt so ashamed and hopeless about this amount of debt that I just figured if I just didn't look at it, I didn't have to think about it. Therefore, it didn't really exist. So that was my approach for the first few years out of college. I went on an interest only repayment plan because the actual payment would have been like a third of my net salary, which in New York I wouldn't be able to live with that. So the debt wasn't going away. And the moment I just said, okay, I'm scared, but I'm gonna look at it because I have to. So that's really where it started. And then from there, the easiest hanging fruit is to make more money at the current job that you're at, and also to plug the leaks with the money that you're already making. So we can get into later. I quit my job in a couple of years later and started on this whole other entrepreneurial path. But really, like, where I was able to plug away a good chunk of my debt initially was looking at my spending, again, looking at my finances, just looking. Because before that, I was afraid to look at my bank account as well. I just always spent money and then hoped that it wouldn't overdraft. And it usually worked out before the next payday. But after that awakening moment, I started getting really, really conscious. Every dollar I spent, I started thinking like, did I really want to spend this? No more wandering into Grand Central Station and getting distracted by these shiny window displays and walking out with $300 worth of clothes that I didn't even mean to buy it and didn't even ever really end up wearing. Like, that stopped because I really started getting conscious and monitoring things.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I have so much to say. First being what you described, I've heard from a number of other people. They're afraid to look at their bank accounts, right? A lot of people watching the show right now are like, oh my God, that's me. And guys, good news, because it's not you anymore after today. Okay. Rose has you, and you nailed it, Rose, by talking about, so many things to say. First, where you just said, nobody's coming to bail me out. I mean, that it's like the scariest and most liberating thing. I think
Liberating
anybody,
moment of
any
your
adult,
life. That's
Yes,
both.
nobody is coming for you. And, and oh my God, I'm going to get in so much trouble. As women, you could say, but I'm going to get a husband. Or you could say, as a dude, I'm going to get a wealthy wife, right? And sometimes that happens, but that is not a that is not a great strategy, right? Because it's essentially what we're talking about is um, you might have the mortgage covered, but that financial freedom gives you emotional freedom. And oh my gosh, at my age, I have known so many women that were replaced by trophy wives. I'm just going to say it, right? And that's a tough one because as moms, a lot of us, I mean, I'm a working mom, but I have plenty of friends that decided to stay home with the kids. Yes, a couple of the guys too, but let's face it, this is definitely more of a decision in most families that the woman stays home, and it's great in so many ways, and yet it can be fraught in so many ways. And not to go on too much of that tangent that I've already gone on, so I'm going to bring myself back. But these ultimately become financial decisions. And so when you talk about nobody is coming, hey Rose, it's you. Like that's the ultimate empowerment. And, and to the extent that you've also given yourself some amazing freedom. I know you don't have kids yet, but if you decide, hey, I want to take my care of my kids, but I've done all this really smart stuff to have passive income that will provide extra income to my family and give me that great feeling, that is game on. Like that is like highest of high vibes. And I want to come back to kind of passive income and some of those things that you talk about. And by the way, it's available to all of us, me, you, everybody listening. If you're like passive income, I don't even know what that is. You're going to find out. It is available to you. But the other thing you talked about, this idea of you were willing to look and you made that decision to be more self-aware. And I feel like in life, that's the power move, right? It's like something, my career is bad, my marriage is bad, I don't like myself. Whatever those limiting beliefs are, whatever those challenges are, I think for us, for individuals, just to be really honest and say, something's off. And only I can actually do something about it. So you did all that amazing work, and props to you. What was that? I mean, next, 2-3 steps. So you started looking at your bank account. Well, and then you said, I started monitoring my spending, and I really challenged myself with, do I really want that thing? So that started getting you, like you said, that started kind of getting you out of $100,000 in debt. And then what happened?
Yeah. So once I had a little more control over my cash flow, I was throwing more money towards my debt. And it felt so empowering to see those numbers go down. And however slowly they were moving in the right direction. And I was finally doing something for myself. So that that momentum just built on its own momentum and snowballed. So I actually started thinking about money as something exciting. Like, wow, it feels good when I do this stuff. And then now where it gets really interesting is I also started realizing that the career I was in wasn't for me. I remember sitting down with my boss for our annual performance review and raise, and I'd done well, but he offered me like a 5% raise indexed to inflation. And the company I was at was known for not paying that generously. And I realized, whoa, I am someone who gives it my all. I've given my all for an entire year, and what they're going to offer me is a 5% raise. It just felt so unequal to what I deserved, what my time and energy warranted. And of course, I could have negotiated and warranted, asked for more. But what I realized was it's because I just am not really enjoying being here. I don't want to be around people who say, thank God it's Friday. And I remember one moment, yeah, that was a real, like, it just burst
That is a
my
wake-up
bubble.
call, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember one moment, my managing director, he just got off the phone. His wife would call him all the time and like give updates on the kids. And he just loved his kids. And he's wearing a Rolex, and he is like at the top of the game of whatever you could get to in that career. And when he got off the phone, he said, oh man, like I just wonder when I'll be able to stop working finally so I can see my kids more often. And that was like, whoa, okay, so I'm on this career track and I want to climb to the top of it. But if that is where I would end up, yeah, then I don't think this is the right track.
It's the wrong ladder. That's what you were saying before. You were on the wrong ladder. And that takes big guts. I mean, as somebody who worked on Wall Street myself, it takes guts because you make so much money or you can make so much money and it becomes your identity and it becomes a lifestyle. And it takes a lot of guts to say, yeah, nah, I'm gonna actually pick me versus society's definition of success and all the status that comes from being a kick-ass woman on Wall Street.
Yeah, especially if you've worked all your life towards that career and took out a lot of student loans to get that degree. And you're right, it does create sort of this identity. And that's something that I haven't talked about enough, is that period of almost depression, because I actually quit. I had enough savings, from my bonus and from having gotten my money stuff together. I had enough savings to last me for a good 6 months. But I quit not knowing what I would do next. But I just knew that this path wasn't working, and I will operate better if I kind of, cut the bridge and have to find something. Because I could see like these golden handcuffs could keep me there for a while, and I don't want to waste any more time because it's a little too comfortable. So yeah, I quit my job, and from there, I'm not going to say it was
and now
easy.
you at that point you were in your late 20s, early 30s.
I was I would say 26 by that time. Yeah.
Okay.
26. So not that old, but it felt
like that is not old at all. You were very young, and you still are very young, but okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was like 4 years into my career.
Yeah, into a Wall Street career. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the next logical step is to get a raise and go back to MBA school and like climb this whole ladder. But I was like, no, I'm not going to do that. So I quit, and I actually had a couple of months of some fun employment, but I also gave myself time to just explore stuff that I never had time to do. Like I would read a lot. I joined a dance studio and signed up for this dance apprenticeship, kind of like random stuff. And even though the dance apprenticeship, I love dance, I wanted to open my own pole dance studio in New York City because that was something I loved to do. But then I realized, I don't necessarily want to monetize that. Like you don't have to monetize something just because you like it. And if you are going to monetize it, make sure it's the right business model. And I sort of crunched some rough numbers and realized, okay, opening a pole dance studio is not going to give me the freedom that I want. It's going to be a labor of love for the most part. So, that wasn't it. And eventually I landed on this real estate job with this guy from NYU alumni. And from there, I worked with him as a real estate investor, or he was a real estate investor. And I helped him with all of his spreadsheets and investor presentations. So that was a really cool job and gave me insight into what it's like to do your own thing. Because this guy was buying his own properties and raising money and just making it all happen for himself. So I was his right-hand woman, and I watched him just do his thing. And I realized, oh, wow, he sees opportunity where other people see risk. He goes out and, conveys confidence to his investors so that they have confidence in him. So it was like real insight into what it takes to start your own thing. And at the same time, I was listening to podcasts, watching all these YouTube videos, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life and how to do it. And that's when I came upon, I would say, my favorite role model, Marie Forleo. And I loved her YouTube videos. She just gave me so much positivity, just transmitting that through the screen. That's what got me onto the idea of starting my own YouTube channel and making videos. I thought, just if I could inspire people the way she's inspired me, like that would just mean so much. And I feel like my life that would be over. And sure, hopefully I can make money doing that, but I would love to do that. So that's where I got the idea. And it would take 3 more years before I actually started my YouTube channel because confidence was a huge thing.
Oh, I didn't know about that. Oh, that's a good little admission.
Yeah. So like I said, it was a very zigzag journey.
So you were you had the real estate thing and maybe some other kind of side hustles or so forth to pay. You were still living in New York City at the time, it sounds like. So you were doing some other things to figure out how does Rose support this amazing freedom-based lifestyle.
Yeah. So at my job with the real estate guy, I actually was negotiating my pay really hard because I learned that at this pace, I'm not going to pay off my student loans quickly enough. So I better really get serious about making something happen. So even though I was really scared, I knew that I need to make more money. And I also knew that I was bringing a lot of value to him. So I got the courage to ask him for more money. And I thought he was going to, fire me or laugh at me. And this was my first experience learning that you don't ask, you don't get. But if you ask, it might just blow your mind. So he came back to me with this whole speech about, oh my God, I see your value. And absolutely, let's see how we can make this happen. And we eventually negotiated a raise where he would give me a percentage of upcoming deals. And over the next 2 years, that resulted in 50,000 extra dollars for me. So that also paid off a huge chunk of my student loans.
But
So yeah, I think
can I just interrupt right there? Because I just love that so much. And especially unfortunately, it is still such a gender thing. So many women are afraid to ask for more, whether it's asking for more money, asking for time off. And I love that you admit that you are afraid, but you did it anyway. And you were afraid that he's going to reject you, I presume, right? And you'd feel embarrassed. But that is one of, I feel like, life's most powerful lessons, that you're willing to ask for what you want, face the rejection, because guess what? There's a lot of upside if
ton of upside.
It goes well.
If you ask and you don't get it, you're going to be exactly where you are. So no downside. But if you ask and you get it, yeah, there's the upside.
Well, I feel like if you ask and you don't get it, it gives you a chance to reflect and get a little stronger, right? Because, I mean, it's like to be stuck in that fearfulness, that's so low vibe. That's going to keep you stuck in debt, right? That's going to keep you stuck in not wanting to look at your bank account. So how do you free yourself, right? I mean, it really becomes that inside job.
Yeah, for sure. I think what trips people up a lot with money and asking for raises or even looking at their debt is they make it mean so much about them. And if my boss says no, it must mean that I suck and oh my God. And if I look at my bank account and I see that it's not as much or I spent more than I would have liked, it means that I suck and that I'm like behind everyone. And, they have all these stories. And something that's really helped me is just to look at numbers from a more rational point of view. Like numbers are just numbers. And if my boss says no, there's a reason why, and I can figure out why, and then I can improve. Kind of not taking things personally and using everything as feedback. Like if I see that my credit card is a lot higher than I would like it to be this month because I spent a bunch, well, that's information. Well, you can look at your statements, see where you spend. Oh, I see that I'm leaking a lot of money on subscriptions that I don't use. So let me go cancel them. If you start just looking at everything as data and feedback, then you can actually start making changes. Because literally numbers don't mean anything. They're just numbers. It's all the meaning that you assign to it,
Well, and I love that. And just adding to that, because so often they're attached to a limiting belief of unworthiness, of incompetence, of like, I can't do this. I'm afraid I'm not worthy. Right. And so I think what ends up happening is that people end up getting stuck. They see that debt, they feel the rejection, and it's like, it's paralyzing versus what you're saying when you tap into your rational mind, right? Get out of the limbic brain and get into your prefrontal cortex and say, these are just numbers. And something I'm always so passionate to talk about as a CEO and entrepreneur is it's all about problem solving. It's all about problem solving. So it's like, all right, you got all this debt. You got all these distribution challenges, whatever it is, right? And it's like, I'm curious about that. I wonder how I can fix that problem. Right. I mean, so I feel like it's exactly like that. That's something it's taken me a long time to really get out of the emotion of it and just get into that practical problem solving mode, which it sounds like you figured that out when you were way younger than I was.
Well, I don't want to sound like it was easy and all of a sudden I was just able to look at numbers with a cool head. There was actually some inner identity shifting that had to happen as well. So
talk about that. Yeah, talk about that.
Yeah. So I remember there was a moment where I was learning new things, and a lot of us are smart. We know that we should spend less than we earn and not get into debt. Yet why is it so hard to actually do those things? And what I found is that it's really your identity, your money identity, that determines what you do, how you think, and then act, and then therefore the results that you create with your money. And I talk about this a lot in my book, At a Zero. And we always act in alignment with our identity. So even though you know what to do, before you can actually do it, there has to be an identity shift. So for the longest time, because my parents had been in debt, and just debt was just a very normal part of life. That's just how we afforded things. So I also inherited that identity that I'm someone who's always in debt and always broke. And that was the identity that I was acting out. And it wasn't until a moment of real reflection. And this happened coincidentally. I was journaling, and I was journaling on the plane on the way back from my
It
first
wasn't
Burning Man.
coincidental if you were journaling, just saying.
No, it was coincidental that I was on a flight, but you're right.
Got it. Okay.
These kind of insights definitely happened during journaling. And it was happening on my flight back from my first Burning Man, which also opened up a whole new just way of thinking. So I had all these like insights, and I felt compelled to journal about it. And I started journaling about memories and the past. And all of a sudden, this memory of me sitting at the kitchen table with my dad about 7 years ago, I was wrapping up my freshman year of college at NYU, taking on all these loans, signing all these promissory notes. And I came home for the summer, sat down at the kitchen table, and I was crying to my dad about how stressful it felt to be taking on all this debt. And I'm hoping for some comfort, some comforting words from my dad. And all he had to tell me was, I'm sorry, I'll just co-sign your loans for you. You know, that was his solution, is I'll just help you take on more debt, because that was his story too. We just need debt. We're just always in debt. And I was journaling, and like the tears started pouring, because in that moment, I actually realized it wasn't my fault. You know, the shame just melted away. I realized, oh, it's because I've just been reenacting what my parents taught me, what the world that I'm in, and it has nothing to do with my worth or value or abilities as a person. And so that was a huge release. So really like releasing any negativity and judgment you have about your current situation. That's the first step to shifting your money identity. And from there, I don't want to.
Amazing. I mean, and just like props to you, because that, I think, if we talked about nothing else, just that is going to be deeply liberating for a lot of people, right? And already has been, right? Because you have reached so many people. And I want to come back to talk about your book too before we wrap up. So, okay, so that was the first big aha about your money identity, that it's something you've inherited. And I feel like there's going to be some good news, because if that's what you inherited, then you can shift it, right?
Yeah, really, it's recognize, which I did while journaling. Release. So the release is the forgiveness part. That was the tears. It's not my fault. I'm okay. And then the last part is to rewrite. And from there, you can actually rewrite the new money identity that you have. We can literally create our reality. So from there, I chose, I'm someone who creates abundance, who can create abundance. And I don't mean like positive thinking and just, like positive think your way to things, but even just one small mantra that is a little bit better than your current money identity. Like maybe your new money identity isn't, I'm a wealthy person, or I am going to be rich. It could just be, I'm someone who can learn and get better with money every day. That's a pretty doable money identity to try on.
Well, and if you feel it, I mean, to me, that's the key. Like you have to feel, like if it's just intellectual, it's going to take a long time and maybe you never get there. But I think your point is, when you feel it and you believe it, then things start to open up, right?
Yeah. You feel it, then you take one small, tiny action, like just looking at your bank statement, if you've never looked at it before, that already is validating your new money identity, that I'm someone who can learn and get better with finances. And then from there, that like you get that positive feedback of, oh, that felt good to finally see what's going on. I feel less stressed. So then you do it again, and then you cut a subscription that was wasting your money, and then you feel even better. And then from there, it's just a snowball effect of finally taking different actions because your money identity has changed. So yeah, that's really where it all starts.
Okay. So you clawed your way out of debt. And as you said at the beginning of our conversation, your goal was just really to get out of debt, right? That was going to be the hallelujah. And a lot of people watching and listening can relate to that. But then you went way further and became a millionaire. So what was the journey between just getting back to neutral and becoming a millionaire?
One thing that we're never taught in school is that there's actually 3 types of income. There is earned income, the kind you make while earning a job, which is the kind that I was making at the time. And then there's also business income and investment income. And business and investment income are so much better and will get you further so much faster than earned income ever will for two reasons. One is tax efficiency. Business income is a lot more tax efficient because you can deduct your expenses and then pay taxes only on what's left. And a lot of your lifestyle you can actually even cover as business expenses. Of course, there's
Yeah, there's a lot of
do it
T&E when
legal.
you have a lifestyle like yours, Rose. You gotta have fun on the job. That's part of the jam.
Or even my hair. Like my hair
no,
is a
totally.
business expense because I have to be on camera. So,
Yeah.
but these are all legal ways.
And it is amazing hair. For anybody who's not watching, you got to look at Rose, find her online because she's gorgeous and has gorgeous hair. But anyway, go ahead.
Thank you. So tax efficiency, investment income is even better because there are ways to pay 0% on investment income. And then, of course, the time freedom aspect. Business income, because you can have people helping you in your business through teams. You can use technology. So there's a lot of leverage there. So you can make a lot of income without a lot of time, or your, time versus money made ratio is a lot more favorable. And of course, investment income, you make a lot of money with none of your time once you buy the investment. So it just blew my mind because once I started realizing this, I realized, okay, I'm making progress here. I've amassed some savings and gotten myself out of debt. But if I really want the freedom, then I'm going to need to start making a business and investment income. And investment income, I already had a little bit covered because I was already investing in my Roth IRA and learning about index funds and
like
stocks.
You're talking about stocks and bonds, like that, like very like Charles Schwab, like kind of like your retail index funds and stuff like that, basically.
Yeah, nothing crazy, just stocks and bonds, your bread and butter in your Roth IRA, 401k. I was doing all that. So I felt good that investment income was happening already. However, I also knew investing $10,000 is great, but investing $100,000, that's going to change your life, because investment growth happens, but if it's on a starting small amount to begin with, then it's going to take decades for that to snowball into a meaningful amount. Compounding is amazing. It turns tiny money into exponential money, but it does take time. That's actually, you really see the compounding happen in the last few years of, like, for example, if you invest $500 a month, in 30 years, that will have become $1 million if you follow the S&P 500 returns. That's wild to think, right? $180,000 of your own money over 30 years is actually end up being $1 million. But again, all that growth, most of it happens on the back end in the last 10 years of those 30 years.
Yeah, that is the compounding accelerates geometrically.
Exactly. And that's great. And that's going to happen. But I also wanted freedom now. And I didn't want to be 70 and too old to enjoy myself. So I was looking for ways to speed it up. And I realized, okay, well, investing is great, but I need to be able to invest more. And to do that, I need to earn more. And if I really want to earn a lot more, I'm probably not going to find a job that will do that for me. And I'm going to have to start my own business. So entrepreneurship is always on my radar, but it was really hard for me to actually do it because, again, no one in my family was an entrepreneur, and it's just a completely different way of thinking. You also have to really put yourself out there and face rejection in a big way, especially if you're going to start a YouTube channel and put yourself on camera. So I mentioned earlier, it took me 3 years to actually start the channel that I wanted to start. And the way I really started was in the basement of a co-working office. I started giving free classes to women about money and investing to anyone who would listen, because I just needed to get some confidence first before I can do something as scary as putting myself online. And that went well. And that sort of built my initial confidence. And after 2 years, I was like, okay, I think people really are getting a lot out of what I'm saying. So I should get on video. And that was really scary too. But yeah, 2019, I started posting online for a whole year with not a lot of traction and made no money. And I was just supporting myself with freelancing on the side. Yeah. And then 2020, I launched my first online program, and that did really well, made $160,000. And that's when I realized, wow, all the work that I'd been doing for the last year and a half, it really paid off. So yeah, I don't want to make it sound like that money just appeared out of thin air. It was like a year and a half of hard work of building up that audience and
Well, it feels
building
like it was
the
way
program.
more than a year and a half, though, to be fair, right? I mean, because like even like the mindset, like all that inner work that you did going back at that point, it sounds like at least maybe 5 years prior, for like I'm not completely clear on the exact timeline, but yes, it's like the tip of the iceberg maybe was a year and a half, but it seems like there was a lot below the waterline that you did that facilitated your ability to get to that point where is actually made manifest.
Mm,
Do you
yeah,
think that's
that's
accurate?
a really good point. Yeah, you know how they say like, oh, it took 10 years to become an overnight success, that type of thing. Yeah, it's all the inner work that I was doing and the self exploration too of even what I wanted to do. One thing that I haven't really mentioned is, that dance apprenticeship. It seemed like kind of a detour, but in retrospect, really helped me start this business and succeed because I learned what it feels like because I did some dance performances. Like I did a competition. It was my first time getting on stage. And I really felt what it's like to get on stage and face rejection and be in front of people
And be
and show them
seen, it
something that
sounds
you've
like.
made out of scratch, which is essentially what a business is. You make something from scratch and then you show it to the world. So even just all those little detours that you don't think are going to lead you anywhere, they actually do, as long as you're following your joy, you're following your passion every step of the way. So yeah, I just wanted to point that out to your
Yeah. Oh my
listeners.
God. I love that so much because to your point, I mean, you just nailed it with this idea that you're following your joy and you're not, maybe you thought for a few seconds, oh, maybe I can start this studio. You realize that that wasn't necessarily the career path you wanted. But you did something that brought you joy. And when it comes to, I'm such a passionate advocate of manifestation, and I always talk about what's high vibe, and it's like when you do what you love, and it's so cliche, right? It's so
Yeah,
cliche.
but it's
But
true.
that's that thing that enabled you to be seen. You got out of your comfort zone. How that ended up helping build your confidence, so you could build a successful YouTube channel. You could build a successful course. So all the things you're doing right now, what are the, and again, understanding the inner work was key, but what specifically is the thing that's making you the most money right now,
Right
or
now,
made
it's
the
still
most money?
yeah. Well, right now it's still my business. My investments are still making, last year I made $100,000 just for my investments. They didn't do anything. So that's been great. But really, my focus right now is generating as much cash flow as I can with my business and then investing that so that later on, if I don't have this business, the investments are what really carry me forward. Because that's really like that. There's nothing more passive than investment income. Like with your business, yeah, you can create an online course and do affiliate income. And those are all semi forms of passive income, but they're not ever really passive, right? You still have to
Right.
monitor
You still have
them.
to market yourself and all those things. So, um, well, let me ask you a few questions based on some stats that are on your site that I think a lot of people will relate to. Um, and a bunch of these are pretty well known. But 67% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, that is astounding, not outstanding, an astounding number. How do you help those people? Are those some of the kinds of people that you're seeking to reach? And what do you tell them?
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of those Americans aren't necessarily earning very little money. They could be earning a lot of money and still be living paycheck to paycheck. So, really, the first step is to get some savings because when you're living paycheck to paycheck, one little emergency can start putting into credit card debt. And from there, the sky high APRs, and then you get laid off and you can really spin off into a financial mess. So the first step is to get just a little bit of financial cushion. And a lot of times people are not used to saving. They don't have that habit of saving. So they think, oh, all or nothing. If I can't save a bunch of money right now, then what's the point? So I always get them started with just saving $2,000 because $2,000 is enough to cover most emergency expenses, like $800 vet bill, $1,200 car repair. The average expense is $1,400 emergency expense. So $2,000 will get you will make you feel pretty solid. It's still not enough because if you get laid off, you would blow through that in a week or so. So saving $2,000, then the next step, and this is all following what I call a financial waterfall, because there is a very logical set of steps that I found behaviorally and also just tax efficiency wise and just being financially sound wise. This is the logical order that makes the most sense. So after you've saved up $2,000, and you do this in a high yield savings account that pays more interest than the average account. Right now, they're paying around 3 to 4%. It's free money, FDIC insured. And the important thing is it's separate from your checking account so that you aren't tempted to just dip into it for Uber Eats or whatever. It's separate. And then that creates the habit of savings too. Just knowing that you've got some baseline of money to your name that's not going away next month or tomorrow. Yeah. And then the next step after that would be to pay off your credit cards.
Hang on, let me just chime in. This is a big number. You say the average American owes $6,380 in credit card debt, but let's face it, that's the average American, and averages can be misleading. So I don't have credit card debt. You don't have credit card debt. So that means a lot of other people it's actually way worse for a lot of people. How bad is it, Rose? How bad is it for those people that have a lot of credit card debt? How bad is it?
Yeah, I mean, the other day, I was talking to a girl who had at one point racked up $100,000 in credit card debt. Yeah, yeah. I don't actually know the stat or the highest, but yeah, it's pretty bad. And I think a huge reason a big reason for it is there's a lot of pressure to keep up with the Joneses. And you look on social media and people have these really Instagram worthy lifestyles, and that makes us feel bad. But based on these stats, they're probably financing that with credit card debt as well. So it's almost like we're all not talking to each other about how we're actually paying for things. So then
or
we think
keeping
we
it real?
should be, yeah. So then
Well,
we
and
think
you
we should
mentioned
be living
Uber
that life.
Eats. I am astounded, especially how many young people spend so much on Uber Eats. Is that something you've explored? Like, how much are people spending on Uber Eats? Do you know? Because it feels like if you could just reduce your Uber Eats bill by 50%, that would be money in the high yield savings account, it seems like to me.
Yeah, and it sounds obvious, but also sometimes it's not so easy, because a lot of times behind the spending is a deeper dissatisfaction that's driving that spending. So I like to tell people, rather than just saying, cut this, stop doing this, I really encourage people to get in touch with why they're spending that in the first place. So I like to take people through a process called the spending audit. And that really involves just going through your last 3 months of spending. And I say go analog, print it out, because doing it manually there's something really healing about that. And take 2 color highlighters, different colors. And if the spending felt good, like, yeah, that really saved me time and I had fun, or that Uber Eats, I really enjoyed that. Like, I watched Netflix and hung out with my friends while eating this. It was great. Then you highlight that green. And if it was wasteful, like, oh, I just spent $70 on Uber Eats because I came home from work and I felt stressed and tired and I didn't have anything to eat and it wasn't even that good, like orange. And so you just go through all of your spending and see which spending felt aligned versus which didn't. And a lot of times some patterns will emerge. So if you do find yourself spending too much on Uber Eats, okay, one possibility is maybe you just need to plan better and just spend 2 hours on Sunday meal prepping, fine. But it could also go deeper than that. Maybe you actually really don't like your career and Uber Eats is sort of your way of compensating for just how crappy you feel. And so you're like, I deserve this because I feel so shitty right now. Then the more permanent solution would, instead of, shaming yourself and thinking you have to deprive yourself of Uber Eats, which I love too, is you can look at getting a career that actually fulfills you so that you don't feel the need to spend in areas to make up for things.
Well, yes, totally. And it reminds me of toward the beginning of our conversation, back to that mantra that you suggested, where you say something to yourself. If you're in financial debt, or maybe you're not even in financial debt, but you're not where you want to be financially. You want to be wealthy. You want to have the freedom that you've described, be able to do Uber Eats as much as you want, give great gifts, take time off, blah, blah, blah. Like, to me, your financial situation is what facilitates all that. just having money in the bank, I mean, yeah, it's great. It kind of helps you sleep at night. But to me, it's really a means to an end in a lot of ways. Right. And so back to what you're describing, when you go through that financial audit, it just makes me go, all right, yes, what do you really enjoy in the things you're spending on? What is compensating for where there's lack? But ultimately, it does feel like it is so fundamental to reprogram your limiting beliefs around your worth and what you deserve financially. And I think that to me feels really fundamental. And I know we spent a lot of time talking about that at the beginning and through the show. But let me ask you a couple other things. We were talking about student loan debt, something that really transformed. I mean, here's a good thing. Yay for you that you had all that debt, because it forced you in a big way to go through this transformation in your life as a human being. Personally, I mean, you look at you, you're radiant, you have this amazing lifestyle, amazing hair, and you are helping all these people. So there, every now and then it's like, oh, it's so great when that thing that's so hard, if you're willing to look at that thing and go, oh, I want to problem solve here, right? I mean, so just saying, like everybody listening, that debt may actually not be so bad if you look at it and go, oh, I know what to do here. But student loan debt has reached everybody brace for it, $1.74 trillion. I can't even imagine what like 1 trillion is, much less close to 2 trillion. So what you've told this beautiful story about how you transformed your life, but you also talked about crying at the kitchen table with your dad being imprisoned by this crushing debt. How do you think this is causing most people to feel? And what do you recommend?
Yeah, I think more than ever, taking on student loans is really not smart. Of course, you might get a degree that allows you to make more money. That usually happens in some careers like medicine and law. Often you need the degree, but a lot of times people are taking on student loans for degrees that don't specifically lead to a career that pays well. And especially nowadays with AI and online learning, colleges actually aren't keeping up. They're not able to keep up with the pace of innovation. So even more and more, the education is not keeping up. And also as a person, you change. So taking on all this debt for a degree that in a few years you might not want, or that you'll only want to do for 5 years of your life, and then the rest of your life do something else, that's very risky. It's like you're locking in a liability for the hope of some asset and payoff in the future. And that in and of itself is not financially sound. So yeah, I think there's a lot of things very broken with the system in the US, to the fact that you have to pay so much money just to get an education. And then that keeps us in this system of debt and then shame, and then we spend more, and then we stay in debt, and then we have credit card debt. I don't like believe in some Illuminati or anything, but like the whole system it feels rigged, and you really need to wake up and start thinking for yourself. If you don't want to live the average life, the average person lives in debt. The average person has a car loan and some student loans and some credit card debt. And you just have to dig deep and say, I won't settle for the status quo. I want more than the status quo.
Amen. And that's what you've done. And it takes a lot of guts to do that. And you're right. I mean, I feel like so much of our lives it's what we inherit. We inherit a lot of limiting beliefs. We inherit beliefs about money, about spending, all those things. So yeah, you're right. It takes each individual to say, I'm going to wake up from this and make different choices, ones that actually serve me. Okay, one or two more quick stats here. You say that 33% of Americans have no money saved for retirement. Okay, there are 330 something million people in America. So maybe we take out some of the kids. All right, you guys don't have to have a savings account. But Rose, you're basically saying that nearly 100 million people have zero savings. That is astonishing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. One culprit is just the high cost of living. It is legitimately hard to save money. Another culprit is,
but hang on, let me challenge that. is it hard to save money?
Just numbers
I mean, right?
wise.
But in the mindset of, I'm just challenging here a little bit. In the mindset of, hey, um, I am worthy of a safe and free lifestyle. I'm trying to think of the right quick thing, but I mean because I think a lot of people believe that it's hard to make money, it's hard to save money. So don't you think that is maybe at the what you and me and people who are like, yeah, wanting other people to have I want people to have financial freedom because to me, financial freedom and emotional freedom go hand in hand. And I think people make a lot of really bad political decisions. We're not going to go down too far down that path. I think people, and there's a downstream impact of decisions that they make because of their financial situation, right? And I think it makes for a much better society, better public schools, better everything if we are not in, and I don't mean to be on too much of a rant over here. I know I am. There is so much income inequality right now, and it's making it bad for everybody. And so it feels like if I'm going to rewind back to challenging you, it's like, is it so hard to make money or is it so hard? Yes, costs have gone up. I just ordered some food from Walmart to get my gallon of organic whole milk, $8.67. And I live in
Yeah.
Colorado. So I
Wow.
have a
And this
feeling
is
where you
Walmart.
live. Yeah, well, there's not even Walmart in New York City. So, but like in New Jersey or wherever, I bet that are up in the Bronx. I bet it's even more. I'm like, wait, it is almost $9 to get a gallon of whole organic milk? Like mind blown, right? So you're right that costs have increased. And yet, when I think about, okay, your point before, how do I make more money?
Yeah, like again, yes, there's situations that could make it hard, but it's all about how you look at it. Like actually, a big reason for inflation is all the money printing they did during COVID and also even the decade before that. So that really inflated asset prices. It just flooded the market with cash. But also, there's at the same time there were many opportunities created to earn more, like the internet and AI. Oh my god, like the money making possibilities that enables. So times are changing, living costs are really high right now. So that just means you need to get even smarter about watching where your money goes and earning more because salaries haven't kept up with the cost of living rises. So if you're just waiting on your employer to help you meet higher cost of living, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to be really proactive about negotiating raises or even jumping from company to company to proactively keep earning more. And that has to be something you make happen. Your employer is not going to hand it to you. And if you don't do that, then yes, it will be hard to save money. Yeah. So if you stay at your job, make sure you do that. But also there's many ways to create extra money starting your own side hustles with all the amazing tools and technology we have today. So yes, I said it's hard to save money, but it's hard if you don't do anything to innovate and be proactive and take charge of your situation. But yeah, at the end of the day, you create your own reality. Just as much difficulty as there is, there's also a lot more opportunity. So if you focus on the opportunities, that's how you create the financial freedom you want, regardless of what's happening in the world.
Well, totally. And just rewinding to what you're saying, if an average emergency expense is $1,400, and I love that you say, save $2,000 because for a lot of people that's a lot. But I feel like it's back to the psychology of, okay, I've saved $100, 200. I'm on my way to 2,000. And I want to come to something that I think is really important to you about how money is energy. But I have one more stat that I want to talk to you about before we get there from your site. You say that 87% of Gen Z and 62% of millennials can't afford to buy a home. Those are shocking statistics. What does that mean? Do you have a prediction of what that means to the housing market and what that means to people's financial future? Because often their equity in their home is one of the big ways that they are able to have a asset appreciate a lot. So what do you think that means? So then they're renting, right?
Right. Yeah, and actually, I don't think that's as it's unfortunate that we can't buy homes, but also I think nowadays it's even more about geographic flexibility. So, yes, of course, Gen Z and millennials, we still want to own a home, but we're also seeing that it's also not as great as it's cut out to be because it's a lot of work. And also, if at today's prices, it's going to be a huge financial strain. So, that's why I'm very optimistic about this sharing economy and this like there's actually this app that I love. It's called Kindred. It's like a home swapping app. And people are sharing their homes, and for when you host, you get credits, and then you can use those credits to stay at other Kindred homes. And it's great because after COVID, everyone wants to live this mobile lifestyle where they can spend the summer in Spain and then the winter in New York where they have family, and then go to Bali for a month. And we really appreciate that kind of global mobility. So I actually think more and more home ownership is not going to be something that is so important to the new generation as much. There's always some emotional value to owning your own home and feeling really settled. But as long as you can live the life that you want to live and have the freedom that you want to have, I don't think it's a big deal. Because one thing about home ownership that I don't think enough people realize is yes, the asset could appreciate. A lot of times home prices do. And so your equity goes up. But a lot of times that equity doesn't really help you create freedom in the now. Like when you pass it on to your kids, they're going to have this free home that has a bunch of equity. Good for them. But for you, you're living in the home right now. So you actually can't even tap into all that equity because you're living in it. And if you sell it and move out, you're probably going to want to buy another home at current market prices. So the equity will just have to be rolled into the new house that you buy. So you really haven't bought yourself any freedom. And in the meantime, you've probably paid a lot of maintenance and repair costs and had to sort of take care of this big thing and not been able to travel as freely as you wanted because, oh, who's going to take care of the house? So yeah, I think, yes, it's unfortunate that home prices are so high, but also I think people are either finding other solutions like buying property abroad or just kind of giving up on the dream on that dream. And
Well,
I think it's
or
okay.
maybe to your point, maybe it's swapping the dream, right? So, to the extent that, as you describe, instead you give yourself the freedom to have a lifestyle where you're hypermobile, and that is a great trade if you'd rather be hypermobile than have a home that you own. And like I'm a gardener, so I'm like planting roses, and it's like, oh my gosh, look at my and raspberries, right? I don't travel nearly as much as probably you do, but it's a trade, and for me, it's a good trade. But I realize that your point's a good one. That younger people, and maybe even older. By the way, I'm talking to older people too, who are like, yeah, we're selling the house and we're going to go live on a cruise ship. I'm like, snap. That's cool. Let me come visit you. Okay, I have a handful of burning questions. Um, as somebody who comes from good German and Irish stock, who was inculcated, especially the German stock, not going to lie, inculcated like you to work hard. That was a value. I have worn that with a badge of honor until a little recently. And I'm still a hard worker. But do you feel like that's a myth that needs to be I mean, maybe not destroyed, but do you feel like this whole like glorification of working hard is the thing that we should all bow down to?
So going back to what you had mentioned earlier that money isn't the end goal, it's the means. And you're right. I do think we are a little too focused on working because we kind of forgot what really matters. Like all this work, what is it for? It's, I mean, the whole point of being alive is to feel joy and contribute to others. And even work is a way to do that if you approach it right. Like if you do work that you love and it uses your gifts and it serves people, then that's worth doing. But working to make money, even though you hate what you do, there is something really wrong with that picture because you're working to make money because you want money to be able to do the things you want and feel secure and take care of your loved ones. And it's almost like we're doing the thing to achieve something, and we actually lost touch with the whole reason why we're even working for that thing in the first place. You know
Well,
what I
it's a
mean? So
little
then,
like your boss, your Wall Street boss, right? The guy that was wearing the Rolex and making bank, but that it was just to support a lifestyle, and then he was missing out on time with his kids. Which, I mean, my generation, I'm Gen X. Like, oh man, like we have totally bought into that model, right? And it feels like there's a big unwinding, and it's easier for me to say now because I've worked so hard. And so as an entrepreneur, I've been able to create a little more freedom and so forth for myself. But I have really looked at myself in the face and this whole business of just the badge of honor of working hard, because I'm telling my kids, my boys are 12 and 15. And I mean, I'm not going to lie, like I have a little bit of a challenge with that idea. So I'm telling my kids, you got to work hard, right? Especially my older son is an elite athlete. You got to work hard. And it's like, oh, if you want to be an elite athlete and you got to work hard, all that time in the gym that nobody else sees, but then you can be Steph Curry and, 3-pointer king. Because I don't know what the number is. It's something insane. Like he's thrown 5 million 3-pointers, but the people watching him have only seen 1% of those or a point per, you know what I mean? And so it's like it's almost like you work hard if you have the dream, like you want to be that elite athlete, you want to be Ariana Grande or, this like superstar or whatever it is that you just love. And if it's not that, maybe you don't work so hard. Maybe you don't bow down to the altar of hard work as
hard
much
work and
as
achievement.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just want to challenge this idea a little bit because I do feel like, I mean, back to your Wall Street boss, it is the cause of, I don't want to say ruin. I mean, it is the cause of ruin of some people, but it is the cause of some real heartache and misgivings, And the show is called Getting Open, so I want to get open on on strongly held, things like that is a belief system, and it's a belief system that I've totally bought into up until relatively recently.
Yeah, I mean, you're preaching to the choir. Korean American, Germans, we're probably the most hardest working people on the planet. This is like all we know how to do.
It's our identity, right, Rose? I mean, it gets down to identity. Like, it's a badge of honor because, dang, I always got rewarded for working hard. Gosh, you're such a good girl, Andrea. Look how hard you are. I mean, look at all those sticks I picked up in the yard or, whatever. Look at all those dishes I washed,
Yeah.
And but it feels like it's a shift in mind. Go ahead.
Yeah, I remember my mom. I barely saw my dad, and my mom, she was so busy working. She was a stay-at-home mom, but she was always busy cooking and taking care of things, just working all the time in the home. And I remember once we were just sitting around looking at baby photos, and I was looking at how cute we were. I have a twin sister, and my mom, she said she was looking at these cute photos of us at 2 years old, and she's like, wow, I was working so hard, and we were just like so, focused on what we had to do that I didn't even really realize back then how cute you guys are. And that's so sad, and but I also find myself sometimes getting into that mode of working really hard. And like, I haven't seen my dog that I'm obsessed with in 3 weeks because I've been in New York working, doing stuff. And of course, I'm launching a book, so that there's important things I need to do there. It's not going to last forever. But yeah, that really does remind me of what really matters, like why we're doing all of this in the first place. And a lot of times it could mean stepping down from working so hard and potentially achieving less. It's okay to achieve less. It's okay to not make $1 million.
Even achieve less. I'm going to push back there because the breakthrough I've really had in my life, I am so much more present than I ever was. And so I may be less productive in some ways, but in a lot of ways, I love my life even more. And my T would say, oh my God, Andrea, we like you so much more. Like, you're not as intense, right? And so even that I want to check. Like, I feel like so many of these, tightly held assumptions about productivity and achievement. And I'm like super type A overachiever, right? Which I've also like, ooh, let me look at that. What's that all about? Right. In terms of proving my worth and so forth. And I throw all these things out there with, you, Rose, and to everybody watching and listening, just because so many of these tightly held beliefs are ones that I think warrant being revisited. And again, if you're an elite athlete, or like in your case, it's a young person who is going for it in her career and loves her work, okay, maybe you're going to sacrifice seeing your dog for a few weeks. I mean, to me, it ends up being a trade. I mean, as again, somebody who worked, I wasn't in trading, but like when I think of Wall Street, like it's ultimately about the arbitrage. What are you trading? And it's like you're trading not seeing your dog because you're building something amazing, right? And maybe that's something that you decide you want to recalibrate. Like only you can answer that decision, or answer that for yourself. Okay, I have a couple other burning questions for you. As a, like I said, self-described hard worker coming from good German stock, I like to tell everybody when I get a good deal. They'll be like, "Oh, Andrea, that's such a cute dress." I'm like, "Oh my God, I got it at TJ Maxx. Oh, I got it from Costco." What do you think? I mean, should we be like just, talking about our good deals and trumpeting this saving money? Or, and you and I were talking about Mind Valley before we started. Vishen Lakhiani, who I just love, the CEO of Mind Valley, they do some really great, cool manifestation stuff. But Vishen in particular really extols the value of spending, which I had a hard time crossing that bridge. Now I'm on the other side, Vishen. I'm with you. But that used to be a lot harder for me. It's like I always wanted the good deal, and I still want the good deal. But I do feel like I'm in a place of so much more abundance, but I had to kind of cross that river between being in that scarcity mindset of, oh no, that's too expensive. Like whatever the price tag was in my head, oh no. And now I'm like, I've evolved enough to go, oh, maybe, right? If that really brings me enough joy. So I realized that was a very long question. So first question, should we be extolling our good deals? What do you think? Is that, low vibe and scarcity mindset, or is that okay?
Okay, I think it's a problem when you spend hours clipping coupons or driving 2 hours to a cheaper
I don't
place.
do that. Okay.
Yeah, but who doesn't love to save money? I mean,
Yeah.
I was, I'm very financially comfortable, but I still love a good deal. Like the other day, I asked my Airbnb host for a discount before I booked, and she gave it to me and saved 150 euros just by asking. So that felt good. And of course, I bragged to my boyfriend about it. I felt proud. So that's great. If you can just little things that save you money and time, do it.
But the spirit of that is what matters too, right? Versus if you were wringing your hands and stressed out and I can't afford it, right? I mean, it really comes back to the energy of it.
Yeah, like if you were clipping coupons and just trying to get every deal, every dollar of discount because you don't think you're going to have more money and you're in scarcity mode, then yeah, if you do it in that energy, that's not good. But if you do it in the energy of I'm advocating for myself and my money matters, so I'm going to want to make sure it goes to the right places and is used efficiently. So I will step up and ask for a discount or, use a coupon if it's there. That's good. So, but and that's good, but saving, you can only save so much, even if you're really good at that. So that's where what Vishen talks about spending and circulating money comes in. It's the flip side of the equation. Just as much as you know how to save money, you also need to know how to spend it. Otherwise, it's stagnant money that you hoard and then you're not going to enjoy, and the world is not going to be a better place for that money. It's just going to stack up somewhere and maybe somebody is going to inherit it when you die. There's no joy in that. So when you save, also learning to circulate it, that really creates that abundance mindset, because you have faith that whatever you spend is going to come back to you in some way, whether it's in a form of joy or more money when you invest, etc. So yeah, learning to spend is just as important as learning to save.
Well, and totally. And I come back to that, the energy of it, and I think about my own life and how much more I spend on things that really, really give me joy. And I think in the past, I would have been a little more stressed about it. And, and so much of what I spend on is experiences with my family or friends. And it's like, oh my God, I just love it so much, and I do feel like it's back to that, just really fundamentally getting into that, abundance. I mean, mindset, heart set, like it feels even more in your heart than in your mind. That is critical to, to having the financial wealth. right? And to your point, it's not just about saving. It really, to me, is about um, you said it a little while ago. If you're spending on Uber Eats and you're loving it, amen. Keep having that sushi delivered. But if it's coming from a place of I'm just so burnt out, I just can't even bother. I mean, sure, every now and then, but if that is the energy of it, then that's um, worth really examining, like you said, and revisiting. Okay, a couple more burning questions. Um, why is chasing money or wealth a bad idea?
Yeah, I feel like we almost touched on this. Like chasing money and wealth for money and wealth's sake is not going to give you happiness. I actually want to share a story. There was a morning when I was doing really well in my business. Everything was going well on the financial front, yet I actually had no peace. So this morning I woke up and I hadn't slept well because I stayed up the night before worrying about something. I was Googling like health symptoms, like do I have cancer? Like I see something on my skin. It just like, and I was fine, but I was picking fights with my boyfriend, complaining and waking up in the morning like on the wrong side of the bed. And I had this moment where I'm like, wow, I saw myself from a bird's eye perspective of you've got everything that you could ever want. You're living on the beach in California, amazing apartment, good boyfriend, you have your health, you've got all this money, and you're like complaining. And look at you, Rose. Come on. Like, what have you become? And I finally realized, oh my God, like, you know how rich people problems, like they have all these issues. Like I've become one of those people. And I hated that. And that's when I realized no amount of money is going to make you feel different. It's how you feel about your money. And a couple years before that, I used to have this gratitude practice that helped me get out of a really dark time. There was divorce, like mental health issues in my family. And this gratitude practice really got me through that time. But when things got good in my life, I sort of abandoned it. So I went back to it. And to this day, it's one things that even if my life is super busy and everything else falls to the wayside, just waking up in the morning and having a gratitude practice as soon as I wake up, thinking of what I'm grateful for, really grounds me in the feeling that we're all chasing, which is a feeling of peace and joy and happiness in the now. So yeah, I fully believe no matter how much money you have in your bank account, you can access that feeling whenever you want. And gratitude is truly the way to do that.
Oh, I love that so much. And yeah, I mean, I know a number of people that have, they live in a big fancy house and they have a great job. And it's exactly like you described. It's still not enough. Right. And so it becomes less about what is external and much more about being internal. And it's cliche, but it's so true. Right. And I realize a lot of people say, well, it's easier to be wealthy than poor. I mean,
Oh, well,
I don't
granted,
know.
it's hard to feel grateful and at peace when you're worrying about how to pay your rent next month. Like you do need to reach a certain level of financial stability. I don't want to just woo-woo positive think your way out of real
No,
financial issues.
yeah.
But at the end of the day, if you have a decent, stable income and you're paying all your bills, really, and honestly, even if you are homeless, there's still something to be grateful for. Like maybe the fact that you are still alive and have your health and therefore are able to call a friend and get some help and go interview for a job and get off your feet. Even then, there's still things to be grateful for. So whatever starting point you're at, you can always build from there
Oh my
and
God, there are
and feel
so
good
many
about
great
where you are.
stories. Yeah, and I mean, I think we're all inspired, no matter where we are in our lives, by people who have had it worse and who have triumphed. Right? I mean, it's like okay, that pure grace. Okay, one or two more quick ones. What do wealthy people know? Since you were talking about rich people, you're having those rich people problems. What do wealthy people know that others who struggle financially don't?
It's really what I touched on earlier about employee income or earned income, business income, investment income. You will not find significant wealth in a meaningful amount of time with only earned income. Actually, I would argue you'll never find wealth with only earned income. Anyone who has wealth, they earned it and then they invested it and created investment income, or they earned it that helped them start their business and then they created wealth that way. So, business income and investment income, if you look at how wealthy people live, yes, a lot of them do have jobs because they like what they do, but their wealth, their mansions and their yachts and all their freedom wasn't from their job. It's from all the other stuff, their business, the dividends from their investments, income from their rental properties, all the growth
Yeah, the
from.
passive income that you were kind of describing, that it becomes those kinds of investments that really compound. Um, okay. So yeah,
Yeah, it takes a different level of financial literacy to learn how to create those two types of income. You're not going to learn that in school, and your parents probably aren't going to teach you about it unless they're wealthy too.
but you are, and that's maybe it's. I want to ask you about why money is energy, not just numbers. But talk about your book. It's just add a zero, right? That's coming up this fall. So what are the main things that you're trying to communicate to people in your amazing new book? And by the way, I pre-ordered. I'm going to get it. I'm going to be one of the first people to get it.
Yay. Yeah, it comes out September 2nd. And the full name of the book is Add a Zero, a step-by-step guide to financial freedom and getting to your first million. And it's basically my playbook on how to go from zero or even negative to a million and beyond and create financial freedom. And it's everything that I learned along the journey from going from 100,000 to self-made millionaire, everything that I learned about what it really takes to create financial freedom, everything that we weren't taught in school, that I wasn't taught by my parents. And every step of the way, I take people through a journey of first how to get to zero. So it covers all the mindset stuff and some of the basic financial skills that we talked about earlier. And then the next phase is to get to 10,000, then getting to 100,000, and then getting to a million. Because a lot of times it happens in phases, and there's different sort of mindset and skill up levels you need to do along the way. And so I believe if you just go take it 1 0 at a time, you can change your financial situation to whatever you want it to be if you just take it 1 0 at a time.
I love that. Do you think anybody can be a millionaire? Tell the truth.
Absolutely. Yeah. And really no one else gets to decide whether it's possible for you but you. You know, you don't have to have permission from anyone. And it really just takes the guts to just say, I want this and I deserve it. Even that is already a huge step for a lot of people. So just believe in yourself, never underestimate where you can end up, and go for your dreams. That would be
Well, you
my
got to get the book. Just add a zero, not just. I keep adding just. So add a zero.
add a zero.
You can pre-order Rose's book on.
addazero.com.
Oh, okay. Addazero.com. And is zero written out or is zero a zero?
Yeah, it's all written out.
Okay.
Addazero.com.
Addazero.com. Okay. Just making sure. I love that. And it really comes back to mindset. It really comes back. I mean, I want to say, I think I'm going to own this one. Heart set. You heard it here first, folks, on Getting Open. It's all about the heart set, right? Because mindset will take you only so far. If you believe it, and I just love your story so much, going from being so deeply in debt and having these scarcity issues and all that you inherited, and you did inherit it. And so many of us have inherited, I mean, what I've inherited financially, a little bit different from you, but more the same than different, right? Really just had not as healthy a relationship with money. And it's changed a lot because I've changed, right? Because my sense of worthiness has changed. And so when I love how you go, like, going from debt to not being in debt to getting, to having 10,000 in cold hard cash, people, like, how good would that feel? Like, you would feel, so many people listening right now would be like, game changer to have $10,000 in the bank. You can do it. And then you add a zero and can you imagine having $100,000 in the bank?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of times, sometimes you just need to get to one vantage point before you can see the next mountaintop. Like I said, I didn't start out with the goal to become a millionaire. Started with zero. Then I thought, if I just make 100,000, that would be amazing. And then from there, the rest is
And now
history.
you got a million. Yeah, no, it's just, to me, it's so inspiring. Well, and it's a good segue back to, why do you say money is energy, not just numbers?
During my financial journey, I read an amazing book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Yeah, love this book. I had to read it multiple times to really understand what it wanted me to do, what it was really telling me. And what it's really telling you is that money starts in the mind. And it starts, like you said, everything is energy. So you start with a thought of, I would like more money, and not just be vague, but I would like X amount of more money. And I'm going to do Y in exchange to earn that money. Getting really specific with that thought. And then that is what drives you to take some actions towards that and to not give up until you create that. And yeah, like when I started my business, I thought I would love to just make $100,000 teaching people how to get empowered with their finances. And I would love to do that by X date. And it actually happened. And that was really my first tangible experience that it all starts with a thought first. Like I literally transformed something esoteric that didn't exist, just a thought out of thin air, into actual dollars in the bank account. So yeah, money is energy. Like it's really all, it's all very metaphysical if you really think about it.
Well, so it's like a form of consciousness. I mean, again, not to get like too woo over here, but I love that book, Think and Grow Rich, and I've listened to it once, and you're motivating me to actually read it, because listening to something is different than reading it. But you're 1,000,000% right that the power of I have been making the people that I'm closest to literally bananas cuckoo by saying it so often. The power of our hearts, the power of our minds, what we're thinking, but it's not just thinking, it's feeling. That Think and Grow Rich, Think, Feel, and Grow, which is if he was to do a second edition,
New book,
Think
Andrea Miller.
yeah,
You should write
totally.
that.
Oh, totally, Rose. You and I, we're gonna co-write it together.
Okay.
But you are so spot on. You are so spot on that priming our brains, priming our nervous systems, having that specificity, but even under that, what you and I have been talking about throughout this podcast, that underlying feeling and belief that we deserve it, right? And a lot of people just feel like, entitlement's kind of ick. For me, entitlement used to be ick. Now it's like, it's not about entitlement in an ick way. It's a worthiness, right? And those are very different energies, right? So I love that example that you just shared. I want to like hug and high five you right through the screen, because it's right on. It's right on.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that'll resonate with a lot of your listeners, a lot of whom are women, right? Like just being unapologetic about your desire for wealth and financial freedom and happiness. That's a huge step. That's gonna change everything.
Well, and I'm going to add to that. Oh, I think it's called the Wellness Podcast. I can't remember this lady's name, so I'm sorry if I'm not remembering you perfectly. But she just talked about how she loves flying first class. And she was just talking about how she likes 5-star hotels. And somebody listening to it could be way judgy. She was like, oh, is it, and she was chatting with somebody. And she's like, no, these are the things that I love. And in the show with her friend, they were like so supportive of, this is what I love, and that's okay. And I just love that, right? Because guess what? If you're judging that, it says way more about you judging it than it does about these women who are like, you know what? I want to fly first class, and I want to stay in a really nice hotel, and I want to get Uber Eats, right? And I can afford it, right? Because the problem is you do all those things and you can't afford it, then you're effed, right? Because then you're home by yourself stressing out that you've got this big freaking, back to the beginning of the conversation, you got this big freaking credit card bill that's due, and you don't know how the heck you're going to pay for it. And that is,
you don't want to get in that situation.
Negative, like when money is energy, it can be really positive energy. Or if it's attached to scarcity and you're trying to keep up with everybody else and you're coming from that place of lack, it can be kind of that dark energy that then wakes you up. Geez, I've got a huge credit card bill. What am I going to do about it?
Right. Yeah, and we've covered so much, and I really want to ground your listeners with just one tangible thing they could just do to start. And I would say, if you take nothing away from everything that we talked about, one thing to start would be that gratitude practice, to really start changing the energy around how you experience your money. And from there, many good things will snowball from that.
I love that. Whatever you have, that's the game on gratitude starting point. That's amazing. Okay, I have one genuine final question for you. So the show's called Getting Open, and you've talked a lot about how you got open financially up until this point. But is there a limiting belief? Is there something maybe on the very kind of, teeny tiny bit of your periphery that you feel like, you know what, I think I kind of need to get open on that, whether it's financial, limiting belief, you name it. Is there something that you just feel like, oh, I'm ready to get open on this thing? Because so much of what we're talking about really is that self-awareness and honesty and having the courage to say, all right, I'm ready to be open and then change that.
Mm. Yeah. Well, I'm in a phase in my life where I would really love to transition into motherhood. And it's hard for me to imagine being able to take care of another human with everything going on in my life right now. And I know that, and I'm really having to rethink. Like, I love building my business and I love making money. It's very gratifying. But also, I'm seeing I have to shift some things if I really want to make this motherhood thing happen. So then there's a little bit of fear, a little bit of scarcity mindset of, oh, but then if I do less in my business, what's going to happen to that? And yeah, so honestly, I don't even have the answer yet, but it's all things that I know there's a universe in which everything I want can happen. Like, I can be a mother and my business can thrive. There's plenty of women doing it. You are one of them, and who found a balance, and they didn't necessarily give up. They didn't necessarily need to sacrifice making money or having a certain level of financial success or career success to make it happen. So yeah, I'm just,
I love that.
I guess I'll have to really look at role models.
Yeah, and honestly, the older I get, the more it's like when I'm facing something that feels like resistance. In fact, one of my guests from a handful of weeks ago, wonderful lady named Karina Kilcoyne, she has this thing when the resistance or the negative so-called negative emotion, the fear, the anger, the sense of abandonment, et cetera, shows up, she'll say, "I see you." And I've used that so much. Like, I'm making space for that thing that feels scary, that thing that I feel resistance toward. And the older I get, the more present I am. It's like, oh, I'm just going to be at peace with this thing because I know the answer is going to come to me. And I know the answer is going to be a good answer. And so I appreciate your sharing that. And as a working mom, as an entrepreneur, I want to say, oh my God, Roz, it's going to be so much better than you even know. And you're going to learn from what your mom shared with you when you're like cute, baby or babies. You'll see them in a way that your mom didn't have that presence, is my great hope and expectation for you, right? Because you've done so much of this work.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And I also realized the reason why I work so hard to create this financial freedom is so that I could have the option to be present. So yeah, I fully know that I have the right values and priorities in mind. But I think just the idea of becoming a mom is probably scary to any woman, right?
Oh, totally. Yeah. And I always call my boys my Buddhas because, boy, have they ever, they've taught me so much. I mean, there's nothing like being a mom that will show you your blind spots. They will show you, the buttons. I always say, like, this isn't a button. I'm circling my face for anybody who can't see me. It's like they'll press every button you never know you even had. Right. And they become your great teachers. And that to me, that is one of the, in addition just to having so much fun with them. But the gift of motherhood can't be understated. If you're somebody who seeks to be the best version of yourself, kids will and show you the darker, harder parts of yourself. But those get healed if you're willing to be self-aware and do the work.
Ah, that's so beautiful. Yeah, I'm both tiny bit scared, but mostly really excited for that.
Yeah, amen. Well, Rose, you have been such an amazing guest. I am feeling so much more inspired by my own, because honestly, as an entrepreneur, I'm just going to give a quick shout out to the entrepreneurs who are like me. You're just building your business. And the person that helps me with some of my financial stuff, he's like, oh yeah, all my clients are like you. You're building your business. You're building your business. You're building your business. And by the way, I have an MBA. And I worked on Wall Street, right? So I know better, but it becomes a psychology of like, I'm trying to raise my kids and build my business. So I am really grateful for the inspiration here because it's like, ooh, I could be I could be doing more for myself and my family and the charities that I give to and the financial support that I give to other people from time to time. Like, and that to me, back to this whole business of money is energy. Like, I can give more if I'm willing to put more into, just a little bit more time and attention and gratitude into my investments. Right. So it's just, it becomes that my team and I, we always talk about the flywheel. So it becomes a flywheel of sorts in the best way possible when you come to it from that perspective, and that perspective of abundance and, I get to give and I get to achieve and receive versus, there's not enough, and this sucks and I don't want to do this, right? Totally different heart sets.
The book's coming. Think, Feel, and Grow Rich.
Yeah, that's right. I was like, the book's coming. It's at a zero. The book is coming. Think, Feel, and Grow Rich. 2 books are coming.
The book that you and I are writing.
Okay, Rose, you are amazing. Thank you so much. Okay, atazero.com. Rose, remind me I just had it open. Remind me, it's Rose Hahn is your Instagram
on my socials.
Handle.
Yeah.
Yep. And you guys can get so much more free, amazing information. Plus, Rose does have amazing courses on her site. Her book is coming. So this is just a little tiny taste of Rose Hahn for you on Getting Open. Thanks so much, Rose. I really love talking to you today.
Likewise. Thanks, Andrea.
Oh my gosh, you guys, what a show that was. Oh, I loved talking to Rose. I hope you loved listening and watching as much as I loved learning from that woman. And golly, there are so many takeaways. What I hope for you is this, because there were so many takeaways. I hope there's just quite literally just 1 or 2 things that you're taking away from this show that you will apply to give yourself that much more abundance in your life. And whether that abundance comes from saving, comes from spending, comes from what you're earning, the kind of work you're doing. Her point's a great one. Money is energy. And so however you leverage that energy, I hope you are inspired to take full advantage of the conversation we had. As always, thanks so much for tuning in. If you are not following or subscribing to the show, please do. It helps us a lot. We want to make sure we're reaching you. We're putting our full hearts into bringing the show to you. And as always, you can email me at gettingopen@yourtango.com. And finally, I love it when you comment and weigh in, wherever you're getting your podcast, whether it's on YouTube, Spotify, iHeart. I so appreciate your comments and feedback. That's a wrap. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Getting Open.